everybody, it's Romania Black, and welcome to our third installment for 2024's Januyaoi! Ha-ha! We've had some really good installments so far, haven't we? I think so. And this installment will hopefully be an amazing round 3. So last year I watched Mermaid in My Tub, which I thought was going to be a BL, thought was going to be a yaoi. Turned out to be really neither. It's still super cute. Would still highly recommend y'all going and watching my reaction to it because it was really great. But it was not a yaoi. Not really a great Januyaoi fix. And so I remember reading the comments for that particular reaction, and Chuya's Hat, who is a commenter that's been commenting on a lot of my series, they said, "Oh, I thought this was going to be the boy that caught a merman." And I was like, did I get it wrong? And so I remembered that all year. I was like, okay, Chuya's had this comment about this boy caught a merman. That maybe is what I thought I was getting, but I got something entirely different. So I decided for this year's Januyaoi, I'll watch that one because maybe that will be what I was looking for. It is incredibly hard to find. For whatever reason, it's done by Sentai Filmworks. I went to Sentai Filmworks website. They don't sell it, which I'm like, what? They don't have it on there. They don't have it on their website to buy. You can't find a Japanese. I wanted to watch the Japanese sub because sometimes, I don't know, sometimes English dub of yaoi, from what I've watched, it can be unintentionally funny. And I was like, no, I don't want to do that. I would like to go back and watch it in the dub and then find out for myself, but maybe we'll do that. Who knows? But I was like, I don't know. And so I was trying to find the Japanese sub of This Boy Caught a Merman. I could find the English dub on Daily Motion, but that was the only place I could find it. And I could not find a Japanese sub anywhere. Like, unless you went to like a porno site, you can't really find it. And I was like, I don't want to put viruses on my computer, so no. And I also wanted to support the official release, but it's not on streaming services. It's not on any that I could find. It's not on Sentai Filmworks webpage, even though they're the ones licensing it. So I was like, what the heck are we doing? So I went to a warehouse distributor online, but the DVD or Blu-ray was like over $100, and I'm like, no offense, but I want to use my Patreon funds wisely. Spending $115 on a DVD seems like a lot. So I got lucky, and some kind soul from Rhode Island, USA, had a Blu-ray copy on sale. So for $12. So thank you, Rhode Island. I'm sure that you found your own merman on the side of the coast and were like, well, I don't need this anymore. It was brand new out of the package too, so I was like, good on you. But I think this might be our winner. I've got the official copy, and the reason why I think this might be our winner, I don't normally read the backs of DVDs because I want to go in blind, as you all know, but as I was opening up the package, I caught the tagline. And I haven't read this, but I am going to read the tagline because it's the first thing I saw, and I went, we've got our winner. It says, and I quote, "Sometimes finding the right person is like searching for a single drop in the entire ocean." I think this is what we want. I was like, oh, yes, it's only 30 minutes. Now, I'm not going to react to the dub, although I definitely will probably watch the dub on my own time after this. But I highly encourage you. There are some copies of this floating around online. If you go to eBay, there are some copies floating around that are between like $12 and $20. We'll see how this reaction goes, but I'm kind of amazed that it is a legit Blu-ray that has a legit, the packaging looks decent. It says it's from Sentai Filmworks, but they don't have it on their website. I'm like, if you are licensing a product, folks, put it on your damn website. You could have charged me like $40 for this thing on your website, and I would have paid it because I wanted to support the official release. But now I have to go buy it off somebody in Rhode Island because you won't sell it to me. But yeah, so Romania Black is, if anything, going to get the legit product. So there will be no like porno pop-ups while we watch, none of that jazz. It's going to be straight from the DVD player. So yay rah. I will make note, he looks like the fire Hashira from Demon Slayer if he became a merman. He also is not wearing many clothes. So So you get that, and then it looks like Haru. It looks like Haru from Free. He has an allergy to water now instead of an affinity for it, and it looks like he's about to perform mouth to mouth. So I have high hopes for this installment. So if you've never heard of This Boy Caught a Merman, I don't blame you because it's really hard to find. But Romania Black is dedicated to watching hard to find but well worth little treasure gems like this one, and that's what we're going to be doing today. So strap in, folks. I have no clue what to expect. I just know it's 30 minutes long. Now, why a 30-minute yaoi has warranted a Blu-ray? I feel that means it's of high quality, because if you're spending the time and effort to market, well, you're not marketing it now, but if you spent the time and effort to put this on Blu-ray and it's only 30 minutes, it's probably good. We'll see. We'll see. I'm guessing it's based on a one-shot. I haven't researched it that much. I'll probably research it a little bit more for the discussion, but I didn't want to beforehand because I thought, that might give too many things away. So aside from that very promising tagline and this very promising cover that looks like a bodice ripper, I'm excited. I know nothing about this. So thanks, Chia's Hat. Thank you for giving me this installment idea for Januyaoi this year. I'm hopeful that it will be well worth it. So we're not going to waste any more time, y'all. We're going to dive right in and see what happens. But we're going to watch This Boy Caught a Merman. And we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. Well, I think that was a pretty successful entry. Oh my gosh! So apparently I looked online afterwards. I can't find any manga that is originating from this beforehand. So I guess this is an anime original. What a wild concept. I'm so kind of amazed that for it not being an adaptation to anything, supposedly, or because it feels like watching it, especially with the side characters or the classmates, it felt to me like it could have been like a 1-volume manga, like one shot that they just cut and adapted to just be the main story between Shima and Asaki. But I can't find anything that alludes to that. I tried to see if there was anything, and all the websites just show the OVA. And I'm like, okay, so it's just an anime original. Yuki Kaji as Shima is blowing my mind, and now I want to go back and rewatch it and be like, it's Yuki Kaji playing Shima. That's amazing. But the voice actor for Asaki, who is the merman, is the same voice actor as Cherry from Skate the Infinity, as well as Best Genius from My Hero Academia. So if you've been looking for your Todoroki Best Genius fanfiction, here you go. Here's the voice actors and what it sound like, but they both are they're both playing very different characters. Although, it should have been noticeable it was Yuki Kaji, because Shima's crying. Yuki Kaji is like, it's the voice acting equivalent of a pretty crier. That's Yuki Kaji. He can cry and make it sound amazing, and you're like, all right. Should have been expecting that, but I also couldn't find out. We're gonna go back to the credits and see if I could see who was singing the end song. It sounded like something from Given, which was interesting. But for an anime original, this is surprisingly, one, I'm amazed they aren't still licensing it. You took time to make the Blu-ray, license it, darn it. I'd be pushing that. Especially with the rise of BL media, I'd be pushing the crap out of this, because it's actually really quality. When I first couldn't find this anywhere, I was really worried that it was garbage. I was like, the fact that I can't find this except on sketchy sites, does that mean that it was really poorly made? Because you all know what I'm talking about. We've watched a couple anime on this channel that I'm like, that seems like there's a reason it's on the certain site to find it. But the fact that it had a Blu-ray release, I was a little worried, because, sometimes just because it has a Blu-ray release doesn't mean anything. It is very conceptual, very deep, and very, really well made. And I was like, what? You took time to do this. Promote that. I don't understand. So that's so fascinating to me. But I want to talk with you all about this, especially towards the beginning, because there was a lot that kind of, I think, got swept under the rug. And I was like, I want to go back and pause it. But the concept of Shima's character just wanting to be loved. Like, from the very beginning, we have, like, the love, and love me too. So the idea of Shima's parents separating and him trying to be the perfect son for both of them, and then it just being overwhelming, and then his grandfather taking him in, being like, this is stupid, quit making your son choose between the two of you, let him live his own life, and then him losing that one source of happiness in his life, and then trying to put on all of these layers and all these personas to be something that he's not, and then Shima meeting Isaki, and Isaki being this representation of freedom. And there's all, you know, the metaphors, the symbolism of the ocean being freedom, the ocean being like, being just kind of raw and pure, and Shima kind of having to come to terms with, well, how do I present myself, and how do I move forward from the loss of my grandfather? And Isaki kind of being that means of him to like grieve and overcome grief and being there for him. It was so deep and sweet. I really liked it. I was like, this is really good. And it was just I wanted it to be longer. I'd watch like a whole damn movie about this. And the style kind of caught me off guard, because I wasn't expecting it to be so like paper cutout. It felt like Paper Mario. It felt like Thief and the Cobbler. It felt just like the way that his hair and eyes were like cutouts and mosaics of like different images together, and it was like overlaying. It had such a rich texture to it that I wasn't expecting, and it just looks like it took time to make, and it had a quality to it. Also, Shima having the beauty mark, I mean, should be obvious, but I just love the way the colors are used. Like, it shows like it's so drab and gray when he loses his grandfather at the funeral site, and then you have like the rainbow and the beauty of the ocean in contrast. He also has a letter from his mother. The moment he said that the funeral was for his grandfather, but neither parent came, that like set the stage instantly for that relationship. And it was like, oh, and that sense of isolation that Shima has, like at the funeral site, there's no one there. It's just him by himself. And that sense of loneliness that he has. And then the idea that he calls the number, nobody answers the phone, and he's in the darkness there, and it's isolating, like everything's gray and doom and gloom. Like the story instantly sets a stage for you to know the mental state that Shima is in. And then, of course, he goes out with the ashes to... Now, why he goes to the edge of the sea when he knows he can't swim with his grandfather's ashes, I don't know. But he's grieving. Sometimes when you're grieving, you don't think things through. Your mind is 1,000 other places. And just the fact that you can tell that Shima loved his grandfather. And he's so sad that he's gone. And he just... The idea that he goes to the edge of that cliff to cry, they do establish later on that he consistently goes there as a kid when he feels like crying, like that's the place to go. But I'm like, damn kid, if you knew you were going to be going all that way and going to the ocean all the time, I'd have learned how to swim. I also would let Shima teach me how to swim. He seems pretty competent. I think it'd be all right. I'm just saying, I would let Isaki teach me how to swim. But I just love that. I love the idea of Shima recognizing his grandfather, and he's wearing the kimono in that flashback, which Isaki ends up wearing, which is a choice. It's interesting. There's a weird kind of with Isaki taking on the kimono, there is a little weird kind of part of it of him like taking on the role of the grandfather, which doesn't seem like it would be very conducive for their relationship, but it's not necessarily that Isaki is becoming the grandfather to Shima that he didn't have. Nobody can do that. You can't replace a family member with something like that. But it's the idea that the grandfather was for Shima a source of happiness and escape from that isolation that he was feeling and that depression. And Isaki is doing the same thing. It is allowing Shima to be himself and to love himself. There's a difference between being loved and loving yourself. And Isaki's like, there's a difference. You don't have to be loved, but you need to love yourself because you deserve that. It's like, get a lot of heaven officials blessing vibes from these two. And I'm like, yes, good. But the way that they portray grief in this little OVA it's really well done. I think they just got Yuki Kaji to play Shima because they knew he could cry and make it really like heartfelt. And then, of course, he drops the grandfather's ashes into the ocean. Luckily Isaki's a kind soul. But I do love the way that this little OVA portrays grief, because it's not something that just is done and over with. It's something that lingers. and it's something that goes on for quite some time. And it's something that even once Shima kind of, gets back in the groove, even at the end of the OVA, it's still something he's not totally moved past. And that's very realistic how grief is. Like, even if you lose someone, years later, you can still feel mourning for them. And that's natural and fine. And I like the way it's portrayed here. And I like that his friends don't judge him or anything. We don't have any of that going on. We'll talk about the friends here in a little bit. But yeah, Little Mermaid be damned. We have our beautiful boy Asaki rescuing him. And there's lots of parallels to the Little Mermaid, which is great, which Hans Christian Andersen's Little Mermaid being referenced, and then Asaki at the end saying he wanted to turn into foam if he couldn't be with Shima. That part all makes sense. I was honestly surprised that they didn't do like a little twist of Asaki like growing legs and it being like the Little Mermaid, but it's a little more closer to the original series than the Disney version, right? I'm gonna, say the elephant in the room. I didn't know how spicy this was gonna get. We've watched some entries on this series. We know very good and well they could have taken it to a level, and I was mentally preparing myself. I was like, are we going to see a mermaid get a handy J? I need to mentally prepare myself for this moment. And it almost got a little bit, when he was like situated in between Shima's legs, I was like, are we going to go there? I mean, we're already in this. We're like halfway through. But then it didn't. It was surprisingly much more tame than I expected, but I'm not dogging it for that. This was actually really heartfelt and sweet and a lot more deep and emotional than I was expecting it to be. And I'm very glad that was the case, because I was like, for a second, I was like, the moment we see Asaki standing over Shima and there's a light and he's like, hello, are you okay? I was like, is this just going to be like really well drawn, shameless smut? And it wasn't. And I was very pleased that it had some heart and soul to it. And good. It was actually very sweet. We've had a lot of sweet entries on our Januyaoi this year. I mean, I think Mignon makes up for it. Mignon's spicy enough. But this was like a nice little like afternoon like tea cake to go with your meal, right? But I love it. I love the idea that Asaki has been watching over Shima. Now, we don't know how old Asaki is. Asaki may have been a little baby merman when he was watching, Shima. But I do like that in both Merman in My Tub and this one, the mermaid is very like blonde hair, super sunny, big personality, to contrast the human, like kind of introverted character that, opposes it. So I like that dynamic. I like we have the sun and the moon literally with them, which is a lot of fun, which is great. So yeah. One thing else that I do like that's represented too, again, the style is like a combination of like cutouts of real photographs and like mosaic collages. It has a very collage feel, which I like. The idea that Asaki like used the money that they saved for the fish to get a cab fare. And I love when Shima's like, so shall we kill you? I've heard eating mermaid flesh is going to be good luck. And he's like, no. And has the pool. What I like about it is also how this series kind of portrays depression and talks about how he's sad and he's holding it in and he's not telling anybody and how that's a problem. And I'm glad that they communicate in this. And Shima's like, well, if I tell people my problems and if I complain or if I'm sad or selfish, then people aren't going to like me. And Asaki's like, no, you not saying anything and holding it inside and just putting on a smile and acting like everything's okay. He's like, that's helping no one. That is not doing a service to the people that are your friends because they're not getting to know the real you. It's doing a disservice to you because you're clearly unhappy and you need to tell people about it and you're not able to be yourself, so it's not sustainable. He's like, just be yourself and it'll be fine. And that's such a good message because so often I think we try to put up a barrier of, oh, everything's okay. It's all right. I'm not hurting at all. And that's not healthy. You need to tell people if you're not feeling good. If you're not having a good time, nobody's going to think less of you. It's like, because we all have been there, right? But so many people, they get afraid to say something because they don't want to be like, they don't want to seem like they're complaining or they're doing this. But I'm like, if you're unhappy and you're not healthy, you need to talk to somebody and you need to tell them. Otherwise, you are just spiraling, right? But I like how it goes both ways. that once, Shima, I love also that there's a little heart, is little sprouts on top of Asaki's hair is the heart. I like that, Shima has Asaki around and he starts to feel better and he starts to not feel so lonely. But then because he's starting to feel better and he's starting to like get back to normal or some sense of health, then he starts talking more to his friends. Then he starts doing more school activities. Then he starts getting back to this sense of like normalcy. But the double-edged sword of that is when he starts to go back, now suddenly Asaki is left alone. And Asaki's like, oh, this isn't going to work. I can't live my life in a swimming pool. And I'm glad that the show does that. I'm glad the show's like, yeah, this is fine, but he's eventually going to have to go back to the ocean. So I'm glad they give us the happy ending of, well, what can they do? Is he going to leave him forever or are they going to cohabitate? And they end up cohabitating. And it's really super cute, right? I love that. I love it. I also love the way that we see in this the concept of the labels, the idea of the labels where it is Shima showing his past and it's like the obedient son and the good son. We'll get to that moment in a minute. Okay, the show that Asaki is watching that's called like This Boy Caught Aliens, that must be another like sister show or related series to this, because when I was looking on eBay for this movie specifically, there were a ton of bundles that was this and This Boy Caught an Alien. There was a bunch of bundles of 2-packs of those two series, but I didn't want the other one because I didn't know if it was yaoi or not, so I was like, I don't want that other one, so I didn't buy it. But now that's referenced in this, I wonder if it is. Maybe it'll be on Januyaoi next year, if that's the case. But yeah, it's just this cute little romance that buds between them. And it's not just like a romance, but it's them understanding each other and like getting trust in each other and coming to terms and communicating with one another and realizing how close they are. And I like that they show like that progression over time. That it's not just an immediate like, yeah, I love you, let's do it. It's like, no, it takes time. And they're still grieving even months after, Shima and Asaki have been together in the house. Asaki's still not, Shima's not done grieving, basically. And I liked how this show portrays it, right? So I want to get to that part with the labels because I thought that was really, really well done. It's earlier on, yeah, we see this little thing where it's like sad me, and there's all these versions of Shima with these little tags on them. Like one says sad me. There's another one that says our pride, like how his parents view him. One says a good, obedient child. One says the strong-hearted grandson, a good kid, and then sad me. Like there's all of these labels on him of how his friends and family see him, and then he sees himself as sad. And I didn't want to cry in this because I was like, I feel like I've cried so much this Januyaoi already. But I was like, I don't want to cry watching this, but this really like was very heartfelt because, I wouldn't say I've been clinically depressed, but you do go through periods where you just feel like, or you don't like your body, or you don't feel comfortable with yourself. I think everyone goes through at least some point, a moment where you don't feel comfortable with yourself and you feel like how you are feeling is not being portrayed on the outside. And this series found a very unique way to demonstrate that, and to demonstrate the pain of when your family is splitting and you just want someone to reach out to you and share love, and it doesn't happen. And it's like the way they visually portrayed it and just used the simple words, like he just wanted someone to love him. And then we see, his grandfather taking him and see all of that. It's so well done, right? So well done. And it's just Shima all alone. And and he keeps crying. And I like that, as Shima goes back to school, Asaki gets to look around the house and see, he gets to see everything in the house and to see Shima's life and how it's been the last several years, right? So the friend, we get his name at the end, but the friend, I wondered if this were longer, if they would have made the friend have a bigger part in it. I do like the little twist that the friend asks what's wrong at first, and Shima doesn't want to say anything. He's like, oh no, it's fine. And the friend's like, okay. Like, he doesn't talk about his grandfather dying. He doesn't, like, express anything to the friend. And then it seems later on he comes out of his shell and talks to the friend, and then they're all cool. I also like the one girl when she came up with the necklace. I was about to get defensive and be like, "Back off, girl!" I was about to be like Kasai from Given. I'm like, "Get out of here," you know. But luckily, she's totally in on it. She's like, "Yes, give it to someone that you like." A wink, wink. And he's like, "I will." He's an actual merman, so this will actually be, you know, legit. This will actually be symbolically appropriate, right? But I like how both Shima and Asaki communicate and get to, you know each other's wants and needs throughout this, like, short. We only had 30 minutes with these two, and I want a whole series of them. Like, and then them both, like, getting close to kissing. It was great. Like, all the moments of woulda couldas. It was great. Wonderful. But yeah, the idea that he gets up every night grieving, and then he finally goes back to Asaki and just says that he's lonely. So he talks about his parents, right? And he tells about, he's like, and he says it's trivial, but it's clearly not trivial. And then he says that it all started when he was a first year in elementary school. So this has been going on since, like, kindergarten. This has been going on for a while, right? Or first grade or whatever. And we have, like, the phrases there, "such a good boy," and it says, "a really good obedient child and our pride son." And Shima kind of looks like his dad a little bit. He has, like, his mom's round face, but his dad's, like, hair, right? And he says, "they both loved me and I cared for them so much." And so then we have, like, all of these things surrounding him. Like, one says the teacher praised him today. He passed his exam. He got 100 on his test. He got an award for his book report. He can write his name in kanji now. He's the class president. He came first place in the race. He ate all of his lunch. Like, doing all these things to impress his parents and be like, "Oh, yes, I'm good enough," right? "I worked hard to make my mother and father happy." But that got harder and harder. And I got really mad at the parents because he, like, was clearly doing all this stuff to impress them. It was being really good. And then you see in the background there, it says, "Shima's a good boy. You should be able to look after a child." Well, I think it'd be better if he was more manly. That's not just not like him. This suits him more. Did Shima say that's what he wanted? And it says fights and ideals. So it's like the two parents couldn't get along and they drug Shima into the middle of it and made him be like the scapegoat for their antagonism towards each other, being like, "Well, he's not how I want him to be. Well, he's what I want him to be." And then it just kind of escalates from there, and Shima's caught in the middle of it, right? And it just shows him just sitting there with a weak smile on his face, not knowing what to do. And then it says, "I can't support your ideals anymore. You're the one who needs to stop pushing their own ideals." And it's just, then they're talking about, like, soccer not being acceptable, and then being like, "Shima's going to cram school. Your father and I are getting a divorce." And then say, "Did Shima say that's what he wanted?" And then it says, "You'll come with me, right?" He's like, "Well, I'm the ideal son." So, but he's like, "Who do I pick?" Because he loved them both. And that's when the grandfather said, "All you two think of is yourself." And I like that he, like, puts the hand over Shima's eyes and there's, like, the cherry blossom petals everywhere. It's beautiful. But yeah, the grandpa's like, "You two are just being selfish. You're not thinking of the kid. I'll take him. Because he can't choose between the two of you. I ain't trusting Shima to you." And then he tells him, he's like, "You live life the way you want." I like that Shima kind of, like, blushes at that, And then he met friends at school. We see, like, all the two girls and the guy. See, like, there's two girls, two guys. They're already paired up. The classmates have already picked out their boyfriend, girlfriend. They're like, "Oh, hey, Shima." And then when they find out he's with the merman, they're like, "This checks." So, they're like, "This checks out. This is perfectly fine. Everything's great here." But I just loved this. I thought this was really good. And I liked that, again, it's like Heaven Official's blessing. Shima's having a Shilien moment over here. And Asaki's like, it's not you, but the state. It's not the state. It's you, but not the state of you. It's like, go read Heaven Official's blessing. This is also a side project to promote that series. I've got like 70 reactions on my channel. You can find those. But yeah, it's just, I love their developing relationship and how much trust and communication they have with one another. It's really nice. And I like that they help make each other better, but neither of them compromises, because, you know, there's the thing where as Shima gets better, Asaki realizes that Asaki goes through his own little state of loneliness where he's like, oh, well, Shima doesn't need me anymore. And there was a part of me watching this that was like, okay, is Asaki going to go away at the end of this? Is it going to have a more angsty ending? Because is it one of those things where like Asaki is the representation of the individual that Shima needs in his life to help him move forward after losing his grandfather? And the answer is yes. But luckily the show is smart enough to not make it to where it's just like Asaki helps him get through his funk and then disappears because he's not needed anymore. Because that's what you think is going to happen. You're like, no. But then they're like, no, we've established that Shima wants Asaki in his life. And it's not just that he's made him happier, but he appreciates him and he likes him. So he doesn't want him to leave. And I like the show is bold enough to not make Asaki go away. And Shima becomes like a happier person. He goes to karaoke with his friends. I'm glad that Asaki doesn't get jealous of Shima going to have karaoke with his friends. I'm glad that doesn't happen. I'm glad that there is no like jealousy there. He's not like, well, why are you spending all this time with your friends? No, he just knows that he can't go, and so he stays in the ocean at the end while he's out hanging out. But he knows that at the end of the day, Shima and him are going to be together. So there you go. There is one moment where Asaki is like in between Shima's legs and his merman body is there. And it's like a moment and he's like, my legs! And then Asaki's like, well, what do you want me to do about such things? And then that's all that we get from that. And then they kiss at the end, so it's cute. But yeah, I like that we have the idea that there's a cultural festival coming up, because of course there is. And then he sees his friend and he's like, oh, well, it's a lot of work. And his friend's like staring at him like, come on. I like that in the background there's all these flowers and fish. It's really cute. And then they go out to karaoke together. But I love it. It's just all the colors and pastelness. It's cute. We get to see Shima be happier. And then we get Asaki going back into the ocean. And then they have their little moment together where they have the little mermaid. I love the moment where they jump out of the water and it's like the sky is pinkish and red. And then the water's like crystal blue. And it like perfectly goes with his hair and everything. It's great. And then they recognize their love for one another. And then they kiss. I was like, good. Thank goodness. And they confess their love. And that's what we get. I love it. It's wonderful. And by the end of it, the hair gets brushed out of Shima's face. And we get to see both of his eyes. We don't just see the one. We see both of them. So cute. Am I right? So adorable. I freaking love it. So yeah. I wanted to get to the end credits to see if we had some information about the singers. And he's like, oh. And then we have the moment at the end where Asaki is lamenting possibly losing Shima. And he says, he's like, I never knew of these emotions before. He's like, when I was at home alone waiting for you, there were so many things. Like, what time will you be home? He's like, with you gone, I'd get so lonely. Should I go see him? I wouldn't be by his side. He says, but if I could just be foam, I don't have legs to go meet you. So I hated myself for that. He's like, I had no way to see you. So I just decided to go. And then, of course, Shima's like, well, what does it matter if you don't have legs? We'll make it work. It's fine. If that's the real you. I like that idea where he's like, if the real you doesn't have legs, who cares? We'll make it work. I like you, and so I don't want to let you go. He's like, that's what you said. It's so cute. And then he likes him. And then they kiss. It's so cute. I really enjoyed this. Okay. So as far as the cast goes, let's get back to that. And we have the mom and everybody. Sound effects. I want to see who did the ED at the very end. The music was by Mitsuyuki Ishibashi, Jun Osugi, Days of Creation. The main theme, okay, The main theme is Umiyori Aoku by Hikaru Midorikawa. So the vocals are the ones. So basically, Cherry sings the main theme from Skate the Infinity. Basically, Isaki's voice actor sings the main theme. Okay, cool. That's great. All right, and there's vocals and then the video editing and everything. Nice. Okay. Cool. Well, that's good to know. So yeah, this was absolutely adorable. I loved this so much. I was really happy that I got to watch this for Januyaoi. So kudos. But I'm so curious to know your thoughts down below. Like I said, I'm very glad that I got this because now I'm going to go listen to the English dub of this and enjoy it very much. So if you get a chance to go online, don't go to a online warehouse because they're probably going to be super expensive because they're hard to find. But if you get on eBay, you may find a kind soul from the ocean that has a copy of this willing to part with it, and you too can experience the magic of this without pop-up boobs. So, but in any case, I'm excited to hear your comments down below. We got next week to finish out Januyaoi, and I'm pretty excited. So, in the meantime, I hope y'all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back very soon with more Januyaoi. See you then. Bye.